You grab your keys, and the second your toddler sees you, head for the door. Everything falls apart. They break into a full meltdown. They're screaming, reaching, and sobbing like you're abandoning them forever. You feel terrible, so you linger. You give that one last hug and drive to work or the store feeling like a monster. But 5 minutes later, you get a text. They're totally fine, playing happily, didn't even ask for you. And you stop to think what just happened? Was the crying fake? Is my baby okay? Or am I doing some kind of damage every single time I walk out that door? Most parents end up thinking their child is going through separation anxiety. But it's actually the exact opposite. It's a sign your child's brain is doing something brilliant. Once you understand the 2-minute switch that flips the second you're gone, you'll never feel guilty leaving the house again. What's really going on, one important thing I want to mention and explain, because most parents see their toddler fall apart at the door and immediately reach for the phrase separation anxiety. And I get it, it's the term everyone uses, it's what gets Googled at midnight, it's what gets thrown around in parenting groups and pediatrician offices and pretty much everywhere. But I want to slow down on that for a second because what most toddlers are experiencing is actually something different, and the distinction is very important to address. Separation anxiety, real clinical separation anxiety, is a persistent pattern that follows your child throughout the entire day, not just at the moment you leave. We're talking about a child who wakes up in the night crying for you repeatedly, who won't let you out of their sight even at home, who panics if you just walk to another room. It shows up at meal times when they're too distressed to eat without you right there. It shows up at bedtime when falling asleep alone feels genuinely impossible for them. It can show up as stomach aches or headaches before school or daycare, real physical symptoms that come from real anxiety. And when you do leave, the distress doesn't settle down after a few minutes. It stays. Sometimes for the entire time, you're gone. That's a different thing entirely from a hard goodbye. What most toddlers are doing at the door is something called separation protest, and it can look identical in that moment. The screaming, the clinging, the absolute devastation. It behaves very differently. Separation protest is your child's way of expressing, in the most toddler way possible, that they don't want you to go. It's loud, it's real, it's not fake or performative. And then once you're actually gone, something shifts. They get distracted, they get redirected, and within a few minutes, they're usually doing fine. That's the key difference. Separation protest lives in the moment of goodbye. Clinical separation anxiety lives well beyond it. Here's what's happening in their brain when you say goodbye. Their nervous system picks up on the fact that their safe person is about to disappear, and it immediately fires off a stress response. Everything floods at once. The fear, the protest, the urgency, and it comes out as crying and reaching and screaming because that's the only tool they have to try to change what's happening. That's not manipulation. That's attachment doing its job. The whole point of the attachment system, the biological drive that keeps small children close to their caregivers, is to sound the alarm when that closeness feels threatened. And when it's working well, it's loud. The screaming at the door isn't a sign that something is wrong with your child or with your relationship. It's actually evidence that the bond is strong. I know that's a hard thing to hold on to when you're standing in the doorway feeling like the worst person alive, but it genuinely matters, and I'll come back to it. But knowing it's a healthy protest doesn't explain the most confusing part. If they are so deeply bonded to you, how can they go from a total meltdown to playing happily with a stranger in under 2 minutes? Most parents think this means their child has forgotten them, but the biological reality is much more fascinating. To understand that, we have to look at how a toddler's brain handles the now, why they're fine 2 minutes later. So now that we know what's actually going on at the door, here's the part that most parents can't wrap their heads around. Why does it stop so quickly? The toddler brain is almost completely present-focused, and this isn't a flaw or a quirk. It's exactly how the brain is supposed to develop at this stage. When you're in the room, you are everything. When you walk out the door, something else becomes everything. Not because they don't love you, not because they've forgotten you, but because a toddler's brain isn't built yet to hold on to distress once the source of that distress is gone. Think about it this way. You step outside, the caregiver offers a snack, or puts something on, or just points at a dog walking past the window, and just like that, the emotional part of the brain shifts. The crying was real, the distress was real, and then it moved on because that's what toddler brains do. They live right here, right now. But even though their brains are built to bounce back, most parents are accidentally doing 3 things that prevent that reset from happening. You're probably doing these because you love them and want to help, but they're actually training your toddler to scream louder and longer every single day. If you're doing any of these, you're trapped in a cycle you didn't even know you started. What makes it worse now, there are a few things that parents completely understandably do because they're trying to help that actually make the goodbye harder over time. The first one is the long goodbye. Your toddler starts crying, you feel terrible. So you stay a little longer, offer another hug, another round of reassurance, another explanation. And what happens is that every time you come back, their brain learns that if they cry hard enough, you stay. So the crying gets louder, the goodbyes get longer, and the whole thing gets harder for both of you with every single departure. The second one is sneaking out. I understand why parents do this. If they don't see you leave, they won't cry. And in the short term, it sometimes works. But here's the problem. Your toddler eventually realizes you're gone, and now they don't know when it might happen again. So instead of one hard moment at the door, they spend the rest of the time checking and looking for you, because you might disappear again without any warning. Sneaking out trades one difficult moment for a longer, lower-grade anxiety that runs underneath the whole visit. So if you can't stay to comfort them, you can't sneak out to avoid the tears, and you can't explain the situation with logic, what's actually left? It feels like you're out of options, but there is actually one 10-second ritual that builds more trust than a 10-minute explanation. I know how hard it is to remember what to say when your child is screaming. So I actually put the exact word-for-word scripts for this and a few other toddler emergencies into a little 1-page PDF guide you can just keep on your phone. I'll leave a link for that in the description if you want it ready for tomorrow morning. Once you've got those scripts, let's walk through the 3-step sequence you need to follow. What actually helps? So what do you actually do instead? The single most powerful thing you can do is build a confident, consistent goodbye ritual. And by ritual, I just mean something short, simple, and something that happens the same way every time. Here's what that looks like in practice. You get close to your toddler, you make eye contact, and you say something like, "Mommy's going now, I'll be back after your nap, I love you." And then you go. You don't linger, you don't go back if they cry, you don't keep adding one more thing. Short, clear, warm, done. Now I want to be honest with you, the first few times you do this, it might feel awful because they still cry and you still feel it. But here's what happens over time. When the goodbye is consistent, the same words in the same rhythm with the same ending, their brain starts to recognize it. The ritual becomes a signal. This is what leaving looks like. And they always come back. And gradually, not overnight, the protest gets smaller. Because trust is being built. One goodbye at a time. The second thing that helps is naming it. Right at the start of the goodbye, before the tears escalate, you can say something like, "I know you don't want me to go, and that makes sense. I love you, and I'll be back." That one sentence does something really important. It tells your child that their feeling is real and it's okay, and it separates that feeling from the outcome. You can feel sad and still be safe. You can miss me and still be all right. That's not a small lesson. That's actually one of the most foundational things a toddler can start to learn. Here's the thing I want you to hold on to from all of this. Your toddler isn't screaming when you leave because something is wrong with them. They're screaming because you matter to them. And they're fine 2 minutes later because the people around them are keeping them safe, and their brain is doing exactly what it should be doing. You're not leaving them broken. You're teaching them slowly and consistently and over again that you go and you come back. And that's the whole foundation of trust. I know that even with a perfect ritual, saying those words and walking away is still going to feel heavy. It just is. So here's what I want you to do tomorrow morning. Once you've done the ritual and you're finally on the other side of that door, don't just rush to your car. Stop for a second. Take one actual deep breath and remind yourself that the crying isn't because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're their safe person. You aren't leaving them broken. You're just teaching your child the most important lesson they can learn, that you go and you always come back. That's how you build trust. If you've been stuck in that one last hug loop for a while, let me know in the comments. What do your goodbyes look like?